there's a lot of people that, again, I'm sure you meet a lot of people. We meet a lot of people. They want to open up a restaurant, or they want to start doing, a food truck or this and that, and it's like, but they don't know what hospitality really is, or what working in hospitality really means.
Yeah.
Because you could be the nicest person in the world. You could be a great host. You could be a great dinner. You could throw great dinner parties at your house. It doesn't mean it's going to translate into being a good restaurateur or anything of that nature.
This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest partners of Sedalia's oyster and seafood, Chef Zachary and Silvana Walters. Are you two feeling unstoppable today?
Yes, I am feeling unstoppable.
We bowled last night, and that's become a full contact sport, so I'm a little sore.
What was your score?
Terrible. I don't even want to say.
I candle pin back home, and I've never broken 100. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it was kind of it was kind of in that same area.
Well, I've heard nothing but great things about the two of you. When I knew I was going to be going through Oklahoma, I reached out to past guests Rachel Cope and Brian Bogert. Special shout out to Brian Bogert for letting us use his facility, the Jones Assembly. It's a beautiful facility. I was like, who else is doing it right? Who's the next generation? It was 2021 the last time I was here. Both of them pointed to you. And that is how I find my guests. Success recognizes success. Good people recognize good people. Same birds of the feather flock together, and your city loves you. So I'm here to learn more about you, to share your story, to dive into how you got to where you are today. But before we dive in, let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
I guess I'll start. I was thinking of this quote, and it continues to resonate with the restaurant. It's, if it doesn't exist, invent it. And it's a quote that was said to me by my friend Al Malonga. She is a wardrobe designer in New York City. And, it's something that now, being in the restaurant business and having your own restaurant and have it growing in very interesting, unique ways, there are spaces there that weren't there when we first started. And we just kind of made those spaces. We invented them. Now they're there. And it feels much like moving along in the process of owning this restaurant and building the community. If it isn't there, how can I make it? Just invent it.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add on to that, Zach?
To that mantra, no, I think it's fantastic. I think it really resonates with the soul and the ethos of what Sedalia is, how it started and where it is now.
I think it's like that quote. So I heard a quote that was, if you're looking for something and you can't find it, there's a good chance you're not the only person looking for it, and there's an opportunity there.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
That was one of the two quotes I had to hear to start this podcast. Yeah. And if you're looking for something, they call it blue ocean effect, right? So go into those blue waters, because especially if you're looking for it and you have a desire to have it, like, you're probably not alone. And blue waters is a good place to be. So Zach, what do you got for us?
This is more of our son's mantra.
Okay.
But
How old is he?
He's 3.5.
Oh, wow.
And it repeats on
a
loop in my head on a daily basis. But it just goes, you got to get a little hey, 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 and a ho, 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 and a little ha, ha, ha. And then he just sings and it dances. And he says that nonstop around the house all day long.
Okay, so let's translate this. A little hey, hey, hey.
Yeah.
What is that in this quote? What do you think that represents?
I think he's trying to say that you got to be friendly to people.
Okay, and what's a little ho, ho, ho?
Laughter.
Okay, I would have assumed that was ha, ha, ha.
Maybe. I mean, maybe ho, ho, ho. He started doing this around Christmas time, so maybe this has to do with the Santa thing.
I feel like the ho, ho, ho is grind.
Like,
like hoe in the garden.
Yeah,
You got to hoe. You got to do the work.
Yeah, he's got to go. He's got to take all of his toys out of his bin at the end of every day.
And if you're not having fun, ha, 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 what's the point? Right?
What is the point if you're not having fun with it?
What's his name?
His name's August.
August, beautiful stuff.
Yeah,
a little philosopher at the age of 3 years old.
He's not bad. I think that he's going to do better at hopefully coming up with mantras or quotes than I don't hold on to like a lot of like mantras or quotes or anything like that.
Yeah. So now's when we kind of like paint the picture of where you are today. So help my listeners understand who are we talking to. So we're here in Oklahoma City. That is where your restaurant's located, correct?
Correct.
How would you identify your restaurant? What sector does it fall into?
It's a casual American seafood restaurant.
Okay. How many seats?
It's 26 seats. And then we have a patio that we can put another 25 people in when that patio is in existence.
So 50. How many seasons out of the year would you say, or how many months out of the year do you get a patio?
We get 2 good seasons. I mean, definitely fall and spring, but we're able to take that patio. Really, I guess 3. Summer's really the trickiest because
It's
hot.
There's no way to really cool it down,
Right.
and the flies are terrible in Oklahoma. So
Yeah, it's the opposite situation. So I'm in New Hampshire. We get like maybe 6 months of like patio weather if you're doing good, but then it starts to get pretty nasty. Cold.
We built the whole restaurant as a alfresco patio only thing because I think we still had like Southern California fog brain when we were building it, and we were thinking we'll get 10 good months out of the seasons here, and that doesn't exist.
And the question everybody loves to answer: what's your percent margin
Of
profit?
I mean, I think that if I had to just shoot it across the bow, I think we hover around 20%.
That's awesome. With 25 seats seasonally.
Yeah.
Like in what you said 30 outdoor, so 55 on all cylinders.
If that 30, yeah. And I mean, we're a 600, maybe less than 600 square foot space.
Okay.
So the whole business thing is you want to do $1,000 a square foot.
Yeah.
So we're doing that.
You're cranking. Yeah. And you built this on a family business. There's a pre-existing property here.
Yeah, pre-existing property that has been in my family since 58 outright. But my dad still operates a construction business behind it.
Okay.
And this was just a abandoned storage building that used to be in the 40s. It was a gas station. It's where you would have gone and paid for your gas.
Okay. Wait, you don't just they didn't plug their cars back into?
They didn't plug them in back then.
Oh, weird.
No, I mean, they didn't have an Elon back then.
Oh, what do you do without an Elon?
They
How do you get the Mars without Elon?
They thrived.
Okay. So what was the business that your dad? You said it was a construction business, and he also had a playground or like a.
Yeah, all he does is install playground equipment. My granddad.
Talk about if it doesn't exist, invent it, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
my great granddad, I should say, when my granddad was during World War II, my great granddad was a foreman of an ice factory here in the city, and he fiddled around with some pieces on a day. I'm not really sure if these were how he got these pieces or whatever, but he basically created the joist of what you would put a chain through that would then help make swing. And so my granddad, who was working for Caterpillar before the war broke out, when he got back, as opposed to going back up to Illinois to work for Caterpillar, his dad talked him into, why don't we just start manufacturing swing sets? And we can build slides. They were both welders. My granddad was
The good old days,
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
Yeah,
like,
he was
where you didn't need a coder to build something.
No,
or, like,
he was an
marketing.
officer in the Navy, so he knew how to weld. So they just started building monkey bars and slides and swings and then selling them around town. I mean, 1940s Oklahoma City was pretty humble, not a lot of people. So, I mean, we sold to everybody. And that's kind of, they manufactured everything, they sold everything, they installed everything. But towards the mid 1970s, my granddad made it all the way to like on the cover of Newsweek for entrepreneurial of like the
Runs in the blood, huh?
Yeah. To a degree, I guess it does. Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie. When I first read about you guys, I think when either Rachel or Brian wrote in an email, it was like a construction playground company.
Yeah.
I thought that you guys are one of those people that let people pay you to like drive bulldozers around and what are those things called? Backhoes.
Backhoe. We know what we
dig some holes, fill some holes, move some sand. I was like, am I going to get to play with heavy machinery on this interview?
There is.
That might be. I think that's what we should
talk about entertainment.
That's
right?
what we should turn it into. Yeah, you know what I mean. Come for.
I was like, these people are genius.
Yeah, come for the fried fish, stay for the backhoe.
Yeah,
I mean, it'd be really good.
But that's still what your story is. Also, still very cool.
Yeah.
I love that. So that's kind of where you guys are today. Can you break up the prime cost for me? Your cost of goods and labor, how that plays into everything? Answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, our labor, we're small, so our labor is able to stay really low, and we're seafood, so the food cost has to be a little higher.
Okay.
And we're also shipping everything in.
Right. Landlocked.
The
Oklahoma.
shipping I've separated the category of shipping out from as opposed to putting it in with the food cost, so it's actually underneath our operating cost, so that we can actually see how much it's costing us to operate business to do it. And it's not crazy, but it's still anywhere between it can be anywhere between $300 and $500 a week just to ship everything in.
Wow.
So that's a commitment, you know what I mean? And I would be willing to bet, but that's because, again, our overhead is extremely low. Like, we're lucky, and we don't have, like, we own the property. So
how
we're
many
not
people
paying
are
anything
working
back.
in the building? Like, if we're on a standard, dinner service.
We have a staff of 12 people. During the busy Friday, Saturday night, we probably have 10 people in the building. Maybe there's only 2 people that are not working that day.
How many servers?
We have 3 servers.
And the rest is back of house, 7 back of house, yourself included.
Yeah.
So are you paying yourself owner's pay?
We pay. Whether or not we distribute it or not is just dependent on the week or not.
Okay.
It's good for us. Accountant tip. It's good for us. We're an S corp, so we pay ourselves. But if we don't take the money physically, then we get to act like we put it back into the business.
Does that go back into profit?
It just helps. It just helps us tell Uncle Sam, like, we weren't able to, like, what are you talking about? We spent all that money.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anything else we should know that's unique about your business? You said, did you share your actual percentages on prime costs? Or you're not?
No, I mean, not entirely. No, I mean, it's also we're very small, so it's like, I'm not like
drilled in.
Yeah, we have an overall, like, parachute, I would say, that we look at, that we keep a good grasp of. We try to kind of, like, project and see what we're going to do the week before, and then we kind of, like, try to say, hey, this is what we're going to spend this week. Let's keep it at that.
Yeah, but I mean, the things I've identified so far that probably are good for you is that you are a big part of your labor expense.
Sure.
So you don't that's going to help your margins, and then you own the property.
Yeah.
So you're that's 7% right there.
I can tell you, owning the property is going to be the success story of the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, that secret's getting out.
It's unfortunately just where we're going to end up at, unless you choose to be in smaller markets.
Got it. So where does it make sense to start sharing your stories? When did you 2 cross paths?
We crossed paths in Los Angeles. I started working as a host at Zack's restaurant in LA. It's a small California-style restaurant called Salt's Cure. It's still open. It's off of Highland and Santa Monica in the Hollywood area in Los Angeles. And Zack was the chef with his business partner, Chef Chris Phelps.
Shout out
to Chef Chris. We love him. He and Zack were business partners, owners of this restaurant that I started working in, and that's how we first met.
What year was that when you opened Salt Cure?
2010.
2010. And when were you hired?
2017. How
do you feel about relationships with your staff?
So this is interesting. I would say, personally, I've dated people that have been in a manager position before when I lived in New York, but we didn't start dating until years after. So when we met, he had a girlfriend and I had a boyfriend, and he was my boss. I got to read his bio, learn a little bit about him, and learn to just be respectful and have that.
The heart wants what the heart wants.
No.
There's one thing.
This is a long story.
Yeah, no, but this is a funny story, and I'll be brief about it because people do ask. So, how did you guys finally end up reconnecting? Years after, I was working at another restaurant called Major Domo in Los Angeles as maitre d'. And I see Chef Zack walking in with a friend, and I recognized him. And, this was at the height of, like, writing down who's coming in, who's sitting at the bar. We're in the middle of a review period. And any person who was industry would just, like, let a manager know there's so-and-so from this restaurant. A beverage director just walked in, a som, a chef. And so Chef Zack walked in, and I said, "Oh, I know this guy. This. I used to work for him." So I said, "Hey, Chef Zack, how are you?" And he just kind of looked at me and was like, "Hey." I was like, "It's me, Silvana. I used to work at your restaurant a couple years ago." He said, "Silvana, yeah, of course. How are you?" I was like, "Anyways."
We see a lot of faces in the restaurant industry.
This is true.
And I had left, so we hired her probably my last 2 months working at Zack's
Yeah.
Care.
Got it.
So I was doing something completely different at the time.
Got it.
But after, we get the initial conversation. Finally, he's acting like he knows who I am, and I still no. This guy doesn't remember me. And then he said, "Are you still working there?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm still there in the mornings, and I'm here at nights." He was like, "All right, good, good to see you again." He went back, sat down with his friend. Maybe I saw him another time, and then we started following each other on Instagram. And then I think a week after, or 2 weeks, just like in our brief getting to know each other, "Hi, how you doing?" He sent me a message on Instagram asking me to go out on a date. And because we had never had any sort of relationship or even friendship, I was very weirded out by it. I got the message and I shared with my friends. I was like, "You guys are never going to believe who messaged me last night." And they were like, "Who?" I was like, "Chef Zack." And they were like, "Ew." I was like, "Oh my God." He probably meant to message someone else. And instead of like typing the person's name, type my name and hit send. And so
Is that really what happened?
Yeah.
And so
we'll never know.
And then so I said, I'm not going to reply. Nothing happened. But then he messaged again as a follow-up message to see if that was a no to going on a date. And then immediately I was like, "Oh,
A lesson in persistence.
yeah." And so
We don't have a lot of time.
So you opened your restaurant, Zack, in 2010. How long did that? When you said you departed 2 months after Silvana?
Yeah,
joined, so what year was that?
2017 is when I left. I left July of 2017.
Okay,
So we opened We opened in August of 2010, so I was there for basically a full 7 years.
Okay, and you were a partner in this restaurant?
Yeah, my business partner and I conceptualized this whole thing. We had worked together at a previous restaurant as sous chefs, and we stayed in touch. And we started doing pop-ups weren't a thing back then, so we were just like, if friends had a party, we would like, hey bud, like my buddy's having a party, you want to come over and cook with me? And we just started working on that, and then we started thinking, like, both of us had been the kind of people in the kitchens where we had worked at that did all the DIY stuff. Like, we made all the bacon, we smoked all the fish, we broke down we did all the butchery and stuff like that. So made the sausage and all that.
Okay. So you're from Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
You were in San Francisco. When did you find yourself in San Francisco?
2003.
Okay. How old were you in 2003?
I was 22.
So you just graduated culinary school?
I went to San Francisco to go to culinary school.
When you were 22 years old?
Yes.
Were you working in restaurants before that?
Yes.
Did you go to school before that?
Yes.
What did you go to school for the first time?
I was going to be an attorney.
Ooh.
So I was a letters major.
A little pivot there.
Yeah.
His parents were not happy.
Did you break your ankle on that pivot? That's a hard pivot.
Well, I spent a holiday season at an Old Navy. And then I was the first person to be let go from the holiday help. My folding was not up to snuff, nor is my customer service. Okay. It wasn't wonderful back then. So when I left Old Navy, a buddy of mine was mowing grass at a golf course by our high school, and he was like, "Come get a job, dude." And I was like, "All right, cool." And then I went, and the guy's like, "We got to do a drug test," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And I did one, even though I smoked a lot of grass at the time. And I was like, and then he calls me back and says, why would you, like, you completely failed.
You know how this works, right?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, my buddy, I was like, Parker told me it didn't matter, and he's like, it doesn't, whatever. So then from there, I saw that a dishwashing job was open across the street at a place called Inner Urban that was up on 2nd Street in Edmond, just a suburb here of Oklahoma City. And I took that job, and they let me bus tables and wash dishes a little bit. And I was there for about 6 months, busting my ass there. And then a buddy of mine was a busser at a nicer kind of restaurant here in the city called Bellini's. And it was inside of like Nichols Hills, inside of the Waterford Hotel. So I was like, oh, maybe that'll be more fun. And I knew people that worked there. I didn't know really anybody in Urban. It was interesting. It was an interesting job. So then I went to Bellini's and again, bus tables. And then from there, I moved to, when I graduated high school, moved to Norman, took a job at.
Where's Norman?
Norman's south of Oklahoma City.
Got it.
It's where the University of Oklahoma is.
Got it.
And then I took a job at Barnes and Noble as a barista at Starbucks.
You're jumping around.
And then I didn't do well as a barista at Starbucks. I had again, my customer service skills were not great. And my cousin, who was working for a woman whose husband just opened up a sushi bar in Oklahoma, and he had just gotten back he had lived in Japan for, 6-7 years, and knew a thing or two about rolling sushi. It's kind of what he did out there. And so he needed help, so I started working with him, and it was the first time that I was actually using a knife and chopping things, and he was teaching me how to make stocks. He taught me how to, in the course of like a month, he taught me so much about just what I needed to do to be a cook there, but also everything to be a cook there was involving so many different things that, like, you still use today. So all the mother sauces, all of the techniques to be able to do that, how to break down fish, how to make rice perfect for sushi, things like that.
20 years later, playing with fish still?
Yeah, and I was, and at that time, I was 19 years old whenever I took that job, 19, 20, and and so he taught me a lot really fast, and then I stayed there until I moved to San Francisco. So while I was at school,
so this is where you caught the bug.
Yeah, I started finding myself wanting to work more hours and not be at school as much. I caught myself not wanting to study anymore, and I caught myself just enjoying the life of being in a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing and recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
What was it specifically that you enjoyed about being, like, what was it about the life in restaurants that appealed to you?
I think it was just the camaraderie at that point.
Hell yeah.
There was also the competitiveness as well. It was the first time that I realized I was a really competitive baseball player in high school, and I was actually doing some training with some guys to try to walk onto the baseball team at the University of Oklahoma. And I was getting so competitive with the other cooks at the restaurant, and I think that again, it just kind of like flipped where I wanted to be, and I wanted to be competitive. And so going to San Francisco, I stumbled upon an opening at a restaurant called Rubicon in San Francisco that I had no idea was as prestigious of a restaurant of what it was. I had no idea what it represented or anything, because I'm just a bum fucking idiot from Oklahoma City, and it's just like, it is what it is. But I walked in, the chef was like, "Come back on Thursday for a tryout." I was like, "A tryout?" I'm like, "All right." And then I walked in there, I did the quote unquote tryout. Yeah, I worked the shift, I worked the night. The guy that trained me on my station got fired that night, and I replaced him. That was the whole idea. Like, basically, the chef was like, "Oh, this guy seems better than the guy I got," and said, "Hey, there's a job opening. It's 60 hours a week."
The opening starts when you get there. You'll see what I mean.
Yeah, it was basically. He said it was 60 hours a week. You get paid for 40 of it. You get $10 an hour. You take it or leave it. And so I did that and just never really looked back. But like I said, I wasn't really paying attention to anything other than just making sure that I didn't screw up and that I was learning how to be better than everybody around me.
So were you in school while at Rubicon?
Yes.
And you were studying culinary?
Yes.
But you said you went to law school too?
I didn't go to law school. I didn't make it.
Oh, okay.
I was pre-law.
Got it. So when did you graduate law school? Not law school. Sorry, culinary school.
2003. I did a year program at the California Culinary Academy.
So 3 years go by between graduating and opening your first place, or partnering to open your first location, Salt Cure.
No, because
2010.
Yeah, that was 2010.
Did I say 3 years? I meant 7 years.
Yes,
Sorry,
7 years.
Okay, pivot. What was going on in your life during this time? Were you in restaurants? Were you?
No, I was.
She was in elementary school.
I was not. I was in high school in Western Virginia. My family and I migrated from Bolivia when I was 13 years old.
Okay.
From a small town called Cochabamba.
Okay.
And my parents brought us here with the idea that we were going to be here for a couple of years, and then we were going to move back. And we never did. We live here still. We're still here. But while Zack was going through all this schooling and just falling in love with the culinary world, I was in high school in Northern Virginia. So I didn't even know that he was going through all these trials and tribulations. And we had very different upbringings. I was not smoking any grass. I was more on like the good.
You're mowing the grass.
I was.
Yeah.
I was not in the same steps, but
we'll pivot back to you when the timeline gets to legal age, I guess.
I'm still like 14, 15.
So 2003, you graduate culinary school.
Yeah.
Do you continue to work at Rubicon during the 7-year period?
No.
Or you bouncing around getting experience?
I left San Francisco and moved to LA right after graduation.
What were the biggest points of evolution for you between, graduating culinary school and opening your own place?
It was a sense of I didn't want to deal with the politics of going through the normal. I didn't. I had some really great jobs after culinary school, and I became a CDC when I was 25 of a really great space in LA called the Hungry Cat. And I had a really wonderful experience there and, made lifelong relationships. But it was hard. And there were some things that happened towards the end of my time there that I was too immature at the time to be able to process correctly. I felt that I was being left out of some certain areas of their business that would benefit me, and I think that all they were doing was allowing me to focus on what I was good at, which was operating the kitchen and coming up with menus and,
How old
and
were you?
specials. 25.
Yeah. The male frontal lobe doesn't fully develop until about 27 years old, late 20s. And that's where emotional intelligence is.
For sure.
That's where it lives. So
you get pretty hot-headed.
Yeah, so you felt like you were being held back, or you deserve more, and you want things to move. We're not really patient as young men.
No,
we're ambitious. We want things to happen.
So then it kind of gets to a point of, I think, with my business partner that we started Salt's Cure with, he was a few years older than I was, and he's definitely a much more mature person than I am in general, just in life, and whenever we kind of started talking, like, well, why don't we do X, Y, and Z together? Because at first we were like, why don't we just open up like a butcher shop where we can just kind of like smoke some fish and make bacon and make some sausage for people, and we'll have some steaks on the side and that sort of thing. And that seemed like, I think that the real idea, I think that at that point, after just like really grinding out at that point, it was kind of like, oh, that actually sounds like a kind of a breath of fresh air,
Yeah, something to be said about finding your lane, staying in it, focusing, and filling blue water, right?
Yeah.
I think LA, there's probably solutions like that in the city like LA where you go get cured meats, or no, in 2010.
2000, around in between 2005 and 2010, the city had just kind of started percolating.
Yeah.
It didn't really start heavily percolating until more like 2012.
Got it.
2008, obviously, the housing crisis happened. That started knocking off a lot of the old guard of restaurants that were primarily there for, parties and, wealthy people and things like that. So
your was your original vision to do just like a deli where you had like counter service?
It wasn't even a deli; it was a butcher shop, and we were going to sell sandwiches. Yeah, I guess it kind of more like a deli-ish thing. Yeah, we were going to do like breakfast and lunch.
And this vision starts coming up around 2009. Got it.
Yeah, but the idea is to do breakfast and lunch. We started our first service was brunch, which is what saved us, which is what saved that restaurant for so long. We were, again, our restaurant at Sedalia is a small. Salt Secure was also 25 seats, and we do about 200 to 300 people every Saturday and Sunday for brunch. And that just really that was the kind of cow that kind of kept us going. But after about 2 weeks of trying to be this like pseudo butcher shop, making stuff and stuff like that we canned that real fast.
Why?
We could see the writing on the wall, and we're just like, let's just cook.
What was the writing telling you? What was the actual? What was the paragraph?
That we did not set up a space properly for a butcher shop.
What was missing?
Everything.
Okay.
Just like the vibe, the way that it was set. I mean, there was chairs. The counter was too small. People would start coming in while you were trying to cook food for other people.
Yeah.
Like we weren't. It wasn't retail.
Got it.
And nor did Chris and I have any idea on how to open up a retail shop.
Stick with what you know, right?
Yeah, and we didn't know shit. I was 29, he was 31. Like, It's not like we knew shit at the time.
Yeah. So you pivot pretty quick to focus on full service.
Yeah.
And what was the food that you were focusing on here? Like what separated you from other restaurants at that time?
The quality of the products that we were using.
All from scratch. Curing your own meats and everything.
Okay. Once a month, either Chris or myself. This is fun. This is fun for everybody. Once a month, either Chris or myself would fly to San Francisco, and we would rent a Penske.
What's a Penske?
A Penske truck.
Okay.
And we would drive that Penske truck to our first pig purveyor, which was a farm by the name of River Dog, owned by a guy named Tim. That's in Yolo County, about an hour and a half north of Sacramento. And we would drive to River Dog. We would put a tarp in the back of the Penske truck.
I was going to say, how much shit was in the back of that thing by the time? Were they alive or dead?
Oh, they were dead.
Okay.
But we would put...
we used to pick up pigs when I was a kid, and then we would get them live.
We would fill the back truck up with ice and tarps, and then we would put 8 whole pigs in the truck. Okay. And then I would drive to a place called Rosati Ranch, and I would put a whole veal in there with a couple of goats. I'd pack up a bunch of any farmer that had vegetables for us. We would fill it up with vegetables. And then sometimes I'd pick up rabbits from Devil's Gulch. Sometimes I'd pick up quail and stuff like that from other people. We had our beef came from a farm called Stemple Creek, so we'd get a half a steer from Stemple Creek. And then we would drive that back down to LA that night and then hang everything on our walk-in. And the menu revolved based off of where we were on the animal. So everything was butchered in-house from nose to tail, and we learned really quickly of what we wanted each piece of each animal to be and what types of sausages we wanted to make or what type of steaks we wanted to cut or where we could find steaks. But like I said, the menu would rotate based off of where we were on the animal. The pig was really easy because we did brunch. We needed bacon and we needed sausage. So we were slower in the beginning, so we had a lot of excess bacon at one point, so we put a BLT sandwich on the menu. And Jonathan Gold decided to come in for his first time for LA Weekly at that time to just take a little bite, have a bite, and heard about it, wanted to have a sandwich. He writes a sonnet about this BLT that he had because it's perfect heirloom tomato season. All the bread was being made in-house. The bacon was absolutely wonderful. Gamey bacon. We didn't smoke it. We just roasted it, but it was super fresh and gamey and really beautiful. The pigs at River Dog were normally half wild boar. They were basically half Tamworth, half wild boar, so they had a meatier, gamier flavor to them. And
dude, you're making me hungry.
I know. So the mayonnaise is perfectly, rich mayonnaise made, where it's not just like Duke's or something like that. Not that there's a problem with Duke's, but when you make it fresh, it's just better. The lettuce is good because the lettuce is coming from Carpinteria, just an hour up the road, and it's beautiful.
So you're painting the picture of the kind of operation you were running.
Yeah, and so Jonathan gets the essence of that just with the sandwich. And that was the only day that we ever ran a BLT sandwich on our menu. And Jonathan Gold's one of the most prolific food writers of all time. So for the next year, we would tell 10 to 20 people a day, we don't have a BLT sandwich, and just watch them walk out the door.
Yeah.
But we never had the opportunity of putting bacon back on the menu, because at the same time Jonathan did that, the LA Times snuck in and did a review for our brunch. And we'd been open for a month at this point.
Damn.
And said that we were one of the best brunches in the city.
Damn.
They put us in this top 7 brunches of Los Angeles. And we somehow snuck on that thing. And that to us was what that was it. That was all for us.
Bare amount of research, because I really like to be curious, and I think when you do too much research, you let other people's opinions kind of get into your brain. And I just want to listen and be curious. And I knew you had some success there. I knew that there was success before what you're doing here in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
What were your challenges during this 2010 to 2017 period?
The biggest challenges were probably with myself, wanting to be bigger and more recognized than what I felt
ego.
We were. It was all ego. My biggest challenge in life is my ego. So, we were doing really good, and I couldn't see the forest through the trees. I felt like, I use this analogy a lot, and it's no knock on them whatsoever, but the day that Bestia decided to open in Los Angeles in 2012, it was like a vacuum came up and sucked the air out of everything else in the entire city. And it took a couple of years for people to finally make a splash outside of the waves that they were making. But that, we're also talking, so much in just our social media life changed between 2010 and 2013. Like everything, just the way that media access plays and how we think about what food is and where food comes from, everything about that changed inside of such a small amount of time. And like I said, Los Angeles in 2010, that's when that huge renaissance really, really, really started to explode. Chefs like me that had never been an executive chef for anybody were deciding to say, I'm going to fucking cook a couple of dinners for some people, for some rich people, and I'm going to get some money, and I'm going to open up a restaurant. And so you had all these really cool spaces opening up around town that were just from kind of nobodies in a way. And we were making our own fucking name. And that was super cool. And it was like, you had guys like John and Vinny from Animal that had kind of already, that had laid a good foundation, but it was, everybody was breaking off. They were trying to get out of Suzanne Gowen's shadow and Nancy Silverton's shadow. They were trying to get out of, all of the quasi fine dining that was Los Angeles. And they were really just trying to, I think we saw what was going on in Brooklyn, and we just wanted that for ourselves.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that there was, and please correct me if you think otherwise, that there was almost like an epidemic of ego going on in the 2000 teens.
Yeah.
Of like, it was all about flash in the pan. Like, I'm after a James Beard Award. I'm after a Michelin star. It was about media, like Food and Wine. It was about getting attention. And I started this podcast in about 2013, and I was following the Eater Best ofs, the Thrillists, the Beard Awards, and when I started this podcast, I was trying to find people who were successful in business and to learn from them. And then what I started to realize early in this podcast is that the people that these award platforms in like the magazines, the illustrations, they were making an example and celebrating food, but they weren't celebrating people who knew the fuck about business.
Sure, yeah.
And I started like asking these people about money and just being like, how much, like, are you making money? And they're like, or if I'm asking money, like financial questions, like they're getting like ghost face because they don't know anything about their numbers. And I think for the longest time, our industry was just chasing status and ego. Yeah. And at our own expense.
Sure. I think I think with any art form, you're going to find that inside of anything. And I think that when you're in places that get a lot of press, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, there's a lot of accessible money that people were throwing at people. So it's not even so much that people were it's not so much that people weren't understanding about how to be business
The economics.
operators.
Yeah.
That's not what they were partners for.
Right.
Like, so again, when I use, Bestie as an example, they were part of a restaurant group that basically hired Ori and his wife to come in and basically say, you guys don't need to do shit other than just cook your food and create a vibe, and we'll take care of the rest. We'll make sure that the numbers are correct. We'll make sure that everything that we're doing, so that you don't ever have to worry about that.
Yeah.
The last thing that most cooks learn about in a kitchen are going to be the numbers.
Right.
And until I
Kind of
left
backwards, don't you think?
I left 20. I left 20. I left Salt's Cure, and I took a job with a company. The man that owned the company was one of our regulars, and it was a company called LGO, and it was out of Arizona, and it was also out of Los Angeles. They had about 13 properties at the time. Bob Lynn, who owns that company, was an old school guy from Hillstone. Opened up about 65 restaurants with George with Hillstone.
You know the name?
Huh?
You know the name? The guy that you're talking about, the open Hillstone?
George something or other.
I think I might be trying to connect with him on this road trip. Is he the CEO?
I think CEO founder.
Maybe
you'll
not
find
yet.
you'll find him down in
I was
Texas.
told he's pretty untouchable.
Yeah, you'll find him, and I think he either lives in Atlanta or in Texas.
Yeah.
He's old. He's older. He's an older man.
Sorry, keep going.
But that being said, Bob was senior VP for a real long time. So I called him when I broke up with Chris and basically just said, I left because I couldn't do. I was burnt to a crisp.
I was going to ask. I was curious because like this lifestyle you're living, the work you're doing, driving to San Francisco, flying or driving things, or flying to San Francisco, driving things down to doing that all the time, working. The amount of hours that goes into that and the knowledge, it might be sustainable in the sense of like you're supporting farms and all that. It's great, but is it emotionally and physically sustainable? Is it fiscally sustainable? What's going on right now?
No, it's not, because it's kind of where we're at right now too.
Yeah.
That puts us on there. But I left that job and I took a job as an executive chef for a corporate restaurant. And I lied saying that I knew anything whatsoever about how to really hone in food cost and shit like that.
Well, I was
But
curious.
I did it. But I'm smart, so I learned it really fast, and I learned it really well.
So with Salt and Cure, or is it just Salt Cure?
Salt's Cure.
Salt's Cure?
Yeah.
So were you, like in terms of like economics there, were you guys, like, did you know your numbers?
We knew him pretty well. We had a good accountant, and
Okay.
we met. We met with our accountant. We met with our bookkeeper once a week, and we met with our accountant once a month.
So you're making money. You're operating in the black.
Yeah, we did real well.
Okay, good.
Until we didn't.
When did that happen?
Something happened in 2016. I can't put my finger on it, but the entire city decided to take a nosedive right around November
Are you
of
being
2016.
sarcastic?
I'm being sarcastic, but I also don't know what the hell happened, because the entire city, the city had expanded so much as far as restaurants between 2010 and 2016, and then right before 2017 hit, everything just started getting sucked out. Like the bubble had burst, and things had started crashing.
I think the other variable that you didn't touch on there, in terms of like all of a sudden there's like this explosion of food.
Yeah.
Right. I think the other big variable that we don't take into account is that retail started to die. And anybody who owned property was like, what the hell am I going to put into this retail space? Well,
Correct.
people still need to eat.
Yeah.
So anybody who had money would find anybody who worked who was associated with any type of success and say, hey, guess what, Chef D Cuisine, like you have a restaurant now. You have a restaurant now.
And same with the bartenders too.
Yeah.
You have a cocktail bar now.
Exactly.
You have a cocktail bar now.
Because what else works in retail space?
Correct.
So I think that was a big part of the oversaturation. Before long, there was just more restaurants than people to go out to eat.
Yeah.
You know? And nobody knew anything about making money in restaurants. They were just about the food at the time. Not nobody, but a lot of people.
No,
had
you're
no
not.
clue about the economics.
You're. I mean, again, you're not wrong. I mean, there's lots of reasons why most restaurants fail, and most of the time it's because of the lack of focus on the business end of everything.
Right. So you leave. What happened? What was like the final straw with Salt's Cure, if you're able to talk about it?
Oh, it was me. I needed to get out. I was, like I said, I was burnt. I was not in a good headspace. I was not in a good. I was living life really fast at the time.
Tell me more. What were you feeling? Like, what was try to? I know not to dig up.
Let's.
bad stuff,
I lived in downtown LA at the time. There's a lot of dive bars in downtown LA that let you stay out there until it's super late. So I would spend most of my time staying up until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, trying to get as little amount of sleep as possible, and then going into work the next day.
Ouch.
And then drinking a lot while I was at work,
How old were you during this
to
time?
get through. No, at this point I was
Early
35, 36.
Got it.
So I was just trying to get through. To be honest with you, I was trying to maintain. But
What were you missing?
I just, I had therapy earlier today, but let's.
I think it's. I know, and I really push it. I have this reputation. I don't settle for the surface area.
Yeah.
Here, there's somebody out here that is going through what you went through.
Yeah.
Right. And
again,
I
what I was missing. If you want to get down to the actual spiritual part of it, in my opinion, it's just the validation, and the validation to me wasn't coming in the form of any type of accolades, and I wasn't also seeing it in my bank account. So if I wasn't getting an accolade and I wasn't seeing it in my bank account, and my relationships with my partners at the time were also fraying, and my personal relationships with people that I cared about were fraying, then it was the world around me. And I was just in a moment in that point in my life where I was just going to say fuck it and burn it all down.
Yeah.
And so for me, before I got to that absolute, I'm just going to burn everything down, I was able to dry myself out for a couple of weeks and just found myself knowing that I needed to get away from what I was in. And that's what I did. And then I took a job with a shit ton of responsibility, and I just kind of like I do with a lot of things in my life, the second I get onto the new thing, I just throw myself into that.
Yeah.
And I just immerse myself into that, into that life.
Well, people don't talk about a lot of those things that you're missing, the accolades, the attention, a lot of that, and I think you started getting into it. You were talking about politics.
Yeah.
A lot of it is a game.
Oh yeah.
And it's not. You could put your head down and work your ass off, and do it for the right reasons. And if you're not willing to play the game,
sure, yeah,
and do the networking and jumping through the hoops, the presence on social media, and I don't know. It's like what really matters. I think that we live in a world where nobody's really willing to talk about the shit that doesn't matter that we put so much emphasis on.
Well, I here and now, we took ourselves off of social media, 4 months ago?
4 months ago. But the restaurant still has a social media, but not our personal social media.
I feel absolutely wonderful.
I can't wait to get into that. I think we should talk about that when we get to where we are today.
Yeah.
For sure. Because I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So 2017, you leave. You were working in 2017.
I was. I remember.
At Salt Skewer.
I remember when I applied for the job and I interviewed and I got the job, and I was excited to work there because, and this is, I think, when our worlds had started kind of intertwining with one another.
How old are you in 2017?
2017, I was 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
So were you working? I mean, we kind of spent a lot of time talking to Zach, but is there anything between your adulthood and this point?
So just catch everybody out there. It was how did you end up in the restaurant world?
This is gonna be Silvana's life in New York. Here we go.
My life in New York started out as working as a hostess in restaurants. It kind of the position of hostessing and being the welcomer, the warmth of welcome. You're here. Let me get you situated. Let's find you a seat. Has always kind of been my persona in life. I think I've always been a very warm, smiley person, friendly.
I don't see it.
easy to get along with, and people flock towards me because they like this energy of this is a warm spot. So I've always been in front of the house. I've always been at the front door with an army of hosts, or me being the host, learning from a maitre d'. And in that life is how I got to know a little bit more about chefs and servers and captains and bartending, and fell in love with this role that I welcomed into my life of just kind of being a part of this nightly circus, a dinner or lunch, a service. And when I was in Los Angeles interviewing for his job, I had read about Salt Cure, so I know what you were talking about the notoriety coming from New York to LA, where whenever the first time I went to Los Angeles was 2013. I was like, where does one eat in LA? Like, where are there like neighborhoods like Brooklyn or downtown, or what are the hot spots? What are the hot restaurants? And I remember going to even my friend Sylvia at Animal. She was like, you really like it, and walking in there and being kind of surprised that the vibe was very much in like a strip mall restaurant, and then you walk in and it's not as glamorous and as restaurant-y as you would find more spaces to be in New York City. But the food was good. LA as a whole to me was always just really spread out.
What were you working towards? Did you have like goals, like vision for yourself? Were you in school for anything?
Yeah, at this point I had come to work at the LACMA, at the Art Museum in Los Angeles. And I was always gravitating and finding myself looking for extra work, either hostessing, serving for extra income. I think at one point I thought maybe I wanted to get back into managing role in restaurants. So it's always been restaurants since then.
Got it. So when did you know that you wanted a career in restaurants?
I think I did that probably when I was working at the Nomad in 2012.
Oh, wow. Okay. I've heard of it,
Yeah, it was. I remember hearing about Will Guidera the first time ever in 2011 when I was working at iFiore inside the Setai Hotel, which is now another hotel in Manhattan. And our maitre d', Kristen Miller, she's the one that kind of poached me and prepared me to interview to work at the Nomad, because she felt like I would be a great fit for the job. And I think what really prepared me to love this what I do, this line of work, my profession in the restaurant industry, is going through the initial training was not just getting an entire booklet of this is what your job is. It was the passion that every person in that team put into every aspect of putting the restaurant together. So we got to walk inside the building when it was still being remodeled, and got to see some of the rooms, and their staff putting together the bar with the beautiful wooden elephants.
Yeah.
And every day was like going to college for serving or for hostessing or for being a som, and we got classes through and through.
So are you a som too?
No, not a som.
Okay.
Not there yet.
I mean, I do want to say that I think, am I cutting you short?
No.
I think that the host position is the most underrated position in a restaurant.
It absolutely
Hands
is. I
down.
agree.
Hands down.
And when I was working in restaurants while as a commercial pilot to supplement my income, I was working full time, and I was waking up at like 4 a.m. to go fly and report traffic by like 6 a.m. wheels up. So like I would always, like, I didn't want to be a server or bartender, because I was like, well, one, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not good at it. Like, I'm sociable, but like if you give me more than 3 things to remember at once, I start to go downhill. I have a very shallow depth of memory. I have to write things down when I'm talking to people, because if I can't remember what I want to say, I have to make a note. That's why this computer is always in front of me. But what I love to do, and what I've always excelled at, is hosting. And if you can read a room and read not just your guests but your staff, and you are the balancing act. Like, no more tables for Sally, because we're going to sink if I give her one more thing to do. Or if that initial 7:30 you roll into 8 o'clock, the rush is down, there isn't a line of people waiting to get in. How can I get people out of the weeds? Who can I take a tray from? What can I do to whose waters can I fill just to take the load off? Like, you're putting out fires. You're getting ahead of issues before they're issues by reading tables, looking for people who are looking for their server. Hey, can I help you? Just see people. Just see people, relay the message. If it's something you can do, take care of it. Let the server know. Like, so many server or hosts just stand there, twiddling their thumbs, waiting for someone to smile to.
It's true. I mean, I will say, in this position that I got at the Nomad, we were more in the position of standing around and being pleasant and looking like we knew what we would do if somebody needed help. But in the moments that we weren't talking to anybody or smiling at anyone, I got to observe a lot of managers helping out servers communicating, and just the amount of work and the amount of intention that went into doing minimal jobs to make sure that service or like dining experience was carried through in a pleasant, not just pleasant, in this like seamless perfection that was created by many moving pieces.
Right.
And I think that's what really gravitated and grabbed me in thinking, I really want to do this. I want to have my own space one day and be able to have this little orchestration.
So this is a dream of yours.
It was a realization. And even when I was like, oh, maybe not, maybe I'll just quit one day. I found myself, saying, oh, let me see what's around me that I can apply to, maybe as a little host position. Because it's also a very innocent approach to working in a restaurant. You're not given the most responsibility, even though you have a tremendous amount of responsibility, and you come to find that on as you keep on doing it. But it is very much kind of, you are in the restaurant and you're in it, but you're not doing as much of the concerning and worrying and doing all that. So that's how I kind of like started falling in love with it.
I don't think it's a coincidence that some of the best restaurateurs, arguably the most well-known best restaurateur to this day, was a maitre d'. I think Danny Myers is in the running for that title, right? Will Gordera is in the running for that title. Maybe not with as many restaurants, but with what he did.
But his mentor was Danny, and and so.
And they were, correct me wrong, Will was essentially, he was a manager, general manager, but he played the role of maitre d'.
Oh, he did. He would touch any table that if he could. I mean, more at 11 Madison Park, you see him kind of walking around, checking in with tables, regulars, making sure that everything is going as planned. At the Nomad, he hired more people. There was our service director, there was a general manager, multiple managers. But when I'll never forget the pre-shifts where he would be in the room and he would not just go over, the VIPs, the wine changes, the food changes, but just always asking us to come with intention. And he said, he would say things like, if you feel like this isn't where you're meant to be, I ask you to really take a good look at yourself and do the things that make you happy, the things that you're passionate about. Like, don't waste your time. And I just felt so moved. I was like, I can't believe a restaurant owner would tell anybody leave. He wasn't just looking at us like we were just his workers. He was looking at us with people that he wanted to move. And I think that's why he's such a great public speaker, because I remember leaving
those reps that practice.
Yes,
every day.
It worked. I felt like I was like, my God, this guy is great. You start telling your family about it, and they're like, who is this guy? But
who's this guru?
Great guy.
You just wait. Someday you'll know the name.
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's be profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
I mean, so many things are running through my mind right now.
Oh, but then, I'm 2017. I'm at Salt Skewer, and then Chef Zack and Chef Chris have this breakup, and everyone in the restaurant is a little bit shaking because they're like, what does that mean? It's like dad and dad broke up. What does that mean for us, right? Are we going to close? Are we going? I was thinking, I just got this job. Am I going to lose my job? And everybody assured us we were going to be fine. Our jobs were fine. There was a separation of the owners, and that's the last time I saw Chef Zack until I saw him again years
when
after.
He hit on you.
That's right. When he didn't remember who I was.
You put it like that. You put it like that.
When he was like, who is this cute little person that knows my name? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think you probably flattered him because you remembered who he was.
Yeah. Well, but I did it out of the practice of the host, know exactly every person walks in, like, that's Charles who works here. That's, anybody. So
2017, you guys cross paths, you start dating. 2022 is when you open back here in Oklahoma. I'm always afraid that I'm going to say the name of this restaurant wrong. I'm dyslexic, so when I see things that look almost like Sedalia.
Sedalia's.
Thank you very much. So what happens in that 5-year period? What's going on? Like,
well, we took a vacation in 2019 to New York, we spent just a week in New York before Christmas, and then I came back to Oklahoma to see family. She flew down to DC to see family, and when we linked back in LA, because we were living together in Studio City at the time, I remember we were having a glass of wine on our balcony, and it was like, man, you know, I had this feeling since 2017 of wanting to get out of LA in general, and I think I hit my number, I guess. And so I said, I think we should. And I think at that time I was kind of more thinking we should move to New York. And we were kind of like, oh shit, yeah. You know, she's texting her friends, hey, do you guys have an extra? We have friends in Brooklyn that have some buildings with apartments in it and stuff. And it kind of came to this whole, you know, we were like really gung ho. Let's move to New York. And then we started thinking, wait, like, if we're planning on getting married though, like, you know, we're also thinking about if we're going to get married, we want to have a family. You know, she wanted to definitely, you know, have a kid in general, and then we're like, well, where are we going to live, and how are we going to do that? And then it just kind of like reality kind of sunk in. Like, where could we go where we could get a house, have a child, maybe start a business, and have the actual capital to be able to do that?
Yeah,
and I'm from here. This is still one of the most affordable places in the country. And she started doing a bunch of research in Oklahoma City and was like, did you know in 2017 it had a Bon Appetit best restaurant? Did you see all these breweries that are opening up?
Yeah.
Did you see this going on? And me, I'm like, I got out of there. I'm never fucking going back.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Things started to pick up for the Midwest around this time. There was this huge momentum in these markets. The cost of living's low. It's definitely the best place you can go for the bang for your buck.
Yeah.
You know? And and I saw it too, like this is where the opportunity for talented chefs was, because you can go to New York or Los Angeles and try to make noise.
Yeah.
Or you can go and be in a smaller pond, but be the biggest fish.
Yeah.
With your reputation and your talent.
And look how fast Nashville filled out.
Right.
Look how fast Austin filled out.
Right.
Look how fast Houston has filled out. It's kind of funny calling like Houston a small market.
Yeah,
since
the footprint is what, like 50, like it's like a 50-mile radius.
it's as big as Vermont.
It's
Houston is almost as big as Vermont.
I think it takes an hour to drive from end to end to that city.
It's insanity.
It's crazy. The footprint's crazy.
So, yeah, then, I mean, that was January 2020. February 2020, we're making plans to get married in Palm Springs. We weren't going to get married in June, but we were like, okay, we chose Oklahoma City. We were going to move to Oklahoma City in 2021. And then, you know, some people started getting fucking weirdly sick at work in February.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this COVID shit happened, and I got furloughed, and then she got furloughed. And then, like, Governor Newsom's like, we might be shutting the state down. And I said, the hell with that. We called a fucking moving company, and I called a guy here in the city because I talked to him about a property that he had for a loft that we wanted to move into, and said, is it open right now? And he goes, yeah. And I said, we'll see you in 2 weeks. And
wait, so you guys were still in LA when this was happening?
Yeah. So we moved to Oklahoma City April 2020.
Okay, April 2020.
We stopped in the Grand Canyon. There was not a soul in the Grand Canyon.
Oh my gosh.
It was absolutely wonderful.
Side note, Grand Canyon is one of those things where you hear about it and you're like,
yeah, whatever.
it's a hole in the ground. It can't be that impressive. And then you see it and you're like, oh,
yeah.
I see what everyone saw. It is.
But
raw top.
It is so wonderful.
People should be jealous of how we saw it, because it was like there was not a fucking
You're the first
soul
people
there.
to find it. Like,
Exactly.
It
And we're
was
like,
scary.
I can't believe the natives built all these metal fencings everywhere.
Yeah, you guys are fine, by the way. I record a podcast in restaurants. I know my fate. It's like, I'm not even thinking about it. Thank you for being considerate.
So we landed here 2020, April. Sometime in May, I had an interview with Brian and Scott and Graham here at the Jones. They were going to figure out when everything was going to reopen. Oklahoma City reopened in July, and I took a job here in July of 2020. I was the first one on staff to get COVID.
Nice. Always got to be number one, huh?
Yeah, there's always got to be one.
The competitive edge doesn't matter.
And I stayed here as the EC until April of 2022, and that's a little. We had already kind of broken ground a little bit on Sedalia's, like we had brought the sewage into the building, and we definitely had all the architectural plans.
Yeah, because
done and all
originally
that stuff.
it was just, you said it was a warehouse.
Yeah, there was no sewage in it.
There was a raccoon that lived there.
There wasn't any there wasn't electricity in it.
So no floor? Was it just dirt?
It was
no, there was floor.
It was half dirt, half floor.
Okay, like cement?
Yeah. Like my granddad had built like an addition onto it. So there's like a lot of Frankenstein pieces all over the property that my granddad had built.
Hit me again with the date you started working on this, like the project started.
I would say it started in October of 2021.
And you were open by 2022.
Yeah, July 2022.
So, what, 7 months? July?
No, it was longer, but
10 months.
Yeah, purposefully longer for the most part. But
Yeah.
yeah, when the construction started, we got it rolling in it took about 3 months of like strong construction.
And I mean, that's pretty fast from like shell to restaurant.
Right, but what it is now, what we did in the beginning was only like 450 square feet.
Yeah,
I mean, it was fucking tiny.
What was the shed that was 450 square feet?
Yeah, basically.
And you've
just
added
about
on
500.
since?
Yeah.
How many acres is it on?
Probably about an acre, maybe an acre and a half.
But you're not going to have an acre size restaurant, right?
No, but there's a 4,000 square foot welding garage off to the side. There's a house on the property that is my dad's office.
So in terms of like parking, and if you need to scale,
Yeah.
you own the property.
Yeah, we've got 20 spaces in our right in front of us.
And
Which
parking
isn't
spot-
enough for freaking Okies, by the way.
Yeah, they got big
Jesus fucking Christ.
You would,
God, like we had
That's
woman
another
pull up.
podcast right there.
And there was, all of our parking spaces were full. This woman pulls up. She rolls her window down. She looks at Silvana and she goes, "Where are we supposed to park?" And Silvana says, "Well, there's some spaces."
This is Oklahoma, wherever
Yeah.
you can put your car.
Yeah,
Right.
There's
we're like
a lot of space.
We're literally there's spaces right across the street, just on the other side of the street. And she looked at it and goes, "You expect me to walk?" And they just storm out.
Well, she said, you expect me to walk across the street? Because I said, yes.
I almost
Levitate.
recorded a video just being like, I love the Midwest because when you drive this my camper, it's
Yeah.
it's not long, but
No.
it's 12 and a half feet
Yeah,
high.
yeah.
And it's like 23 feet long, which is just big enough to not fit in parking spots.
It's a good rig.
And if there is a parking spot on the side of the road, there's usually a tree that hangs out at that height that will keep you from getting into it. So the cool thing about Oklahoma is that there's so much space.
Yeah.
Like there is never not a place to find a
We
place to
are
park.
we love parking lots here.
I avoid New York City like the plague.
Yeah, I do not in that thing. You don't want to go in there with that thing.
Like the low bridges, like every turn is like an anxiety attack. Is there going to be a low bridge around this
Oh,
corner?
my goodness.
I have to use a trucking app just to
Yeah.
make sure I stay on trucker routes because it's
Yeah,
dangerous.
I could see that.
Anyway, parking. Yeah. But okay, 10 months we said from breaking ground to being open.
Yeah, it felt longer, but yeah, that's
Your family owns this property.
Yeah.
Your parents live there?
No.
You live there.
No.
Who lives there?
Nobody. We have raccoons.
There's a house on the property,
There's
though.
alley cats and raccoons that live on
But
the
the
property.
house is it's made
It's just
into,
an
it's an
office.
office.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess the question, what I'm kind of curious at is how much did you have to raise to get open?
Not much.
Remember the
So
number?
we took full in was 220.
Okay.
We got a loan from the bank for 100.
Okay.
And the bank gave it to us as a like home improvement loan, like a
Okay.
property improvement loan. So that note, super fucking cheap.
Yeah, that's a real low bar to get over relative to other.
Yeah, that's our
stories I've heard.
like that loan is our rent.
Right.
So and then we have we got a 6-year note on it for like $550 a month.
So in terms of building out the restaurant, did you get new appliance? Were you using
Used everything. Yeah, I got a giant yakitori grill from Chris DeMont from Grills by DeMont.
Ooh, Grills by DeMont. Chris, my man, past guest on the show. So talented.
Dude's awesome.
That guy.
Real awesome.
Wife is amazing, too.
Yeah, real. They, again, just like everything Chris does, it's unique. He had never done it before, so he hadn't even started those like little yakitoris that he's building now. He
What is a
hadn't even
yakitori?
got- Yeah, it's basically a Japanese style grill where you put skewers on.
Yeah. How did you learn about Chris DeMont?
Probably from Sean Brock, just like following him on Instagram and seeing who was building his stuff.
Yeah, it's sharp. I have one of his handheld grills.
Yeah, I love that.
I
Yeah.
mean, someday I'm gonna have a Grills by DeMont grill in my home. That's my personal life goal. Is
Yeah.
to have a live fire
He-
grill.
He's
in my home.
so much more affordable than like Grillworks and all of his other competitors.
Dude, you're making me so happy.
He does.
That you're giving. Like, so they fell on my radar. I got them on the show.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to. I just love good people doing good work.
Yeah,
like these people are. I had them on the show, and I've shared their story. But to get an organic testimonial,
Yeah.
for somebody who builds custom grills.
Yeah.
What is the probability of that happening? That somebody I got on the show already. Like, I want to send this guy business.
Yeah.
So learn through Sean Brock. Sean was using.
I would imagine.
Yeah. He specializes in live fire grills, which are basically like they're on wheels. You could probably explain it better.
Yeah, mine is not. Mine is a flat bed. It's a 43-inch, about 16-inch wide, just kind of rectangle where you can put a bunch of bicho-chan in.
Okay.
There's 2 drawers on the bottom of it to take for air vents and for also dusting. And then there's a rack behind it where I can have modular crates going up and down so I can hang things from it and or I can grill things at a higher level and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're based in Atlanta. We'll be sure to link to that company. If you're a concept looking to do or is already doing live fire cooking, check out his work. It's affordable. He'll fly out to help install and do all that stuff. And in full transparency, he said that if I ever sent people his way, he would help us out too and give us a piece of the deal. So please use my links and please let them know Restaurant Stoppable sent you that way because we could all use a little help.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So anything else we should know about that experience with working with Chris?
It was one kind of conversation, and then like we did a consultation, and then we just kind of went back and forth for probably about 2 weeks, and then he sent me an overall spec of the design. I said it looked good. Let's do it. Let's get it going, and then we went from there.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up that episode while it's on my mind, so the listeners can check it out. And it's true, like American entrepreneur story. They from like Denmark, I want to say.
Somewhere, it could be more Eastern European than Denmark. It could be like Poland, but I don't really know.
No, I think you said he was Danish. Remember,
Was
you
it
were like,
Danish?
yeah, he was definitely more.
Or Swedish.
Swedish, maybe Swedish, yes.
Or
yes,
Finnish,
yes.
maybe Finnish.
Episode 977, if you guys want to check that
Oh
out.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So the only new thing you bought was that grill. You must have had to have a decent hood system installed,
Yeah, I mean our hood system sucks.
but it was not already there. So you pulled an old system and kind of
The guy who I use as a contractor has a buddy down in Texas that builds cheap hood vents, and he went down there and picked one of those up and threw it in there.
got it. And
The motor's not bad. The bones are good, but it's not. It's not technically regulated for live fire.
I was going to say, because I know with live fire, are we going to get in trouble?
No.
Okay, just making sure. So what about refrigeration?
A few new like the old Websterant Special Advantco, one and only, tried and true.
Well, I mean, I think that's one area where you wouldn't mind spending some money to get new because you get into trouble.
We got a couple of old pieces, and I got one new piece on the refrigeration. I've replaced 2 of the used refrigerators just from like leaking and things like that.
If you got to go use just to get open, like as soon as you start making money, like put that at the top of your list. To replace.
We spent all in $30,000 maybe all in
On
for
equipment.
all of our equipment.
And the
maybe,
rest went
maybe
to
less.
construction.
Yeah, maybe less.
Were you doing most of the construction?
We did very little. My dad did. My dad has construction guys that did a lot of it, but the guy that we hired as a contractor had a few guys that were doing most of it.
Got it.
So I'm not. I can be handsy. I guess I can be good with building stuff, but I'm not a builder.
Is that handsy or handy?
Handy.
Okay, just making
Yeah.
sure.
I was going to say that handy, but I think he's plenty handy because I have some videos of him like putting together tarps, he's very resourceful and handy.
But building stuff, I wouldn't. I'm not. I wouldn't say that's my specialty.
Right. I'm there with you. I mean, I think the big underlying message here right now is really just like keep your liabilities as low as possible.
Yeah.
Get started. Like, and I don't think I think for the longest time there was all this like attention on like, extravagant, over the top, like money isn't an issue if you had big investors.
As we sit in the Jones Assembly.
I know. Well, this is a beautiful stuff, but there is no one way to do it. There is no one path that's right for everybody.
Yeah.
And if you have good people doing good work.
Sure.
And you're throwing a little bit of juxtaposition in there, putting it in a place you wouldn't expect it, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's more than enough.
Yeah, there's times where I miss some of the, it'd be nice if we had better furnishings and, like half of the inside of our restaurant is still stucco. It's not washable. I have to like steam the walls to clean them. And that would have been nice to fur it out a little bit and actually make walls that we could wash. But what we have works. I mean, I think like what we're doing works for what we need it to work for.
Yeah.
And we've also, we opened, we had an outside patio with 3 picnic tables on that outside patio that was built out a year later as our dining room now. And it's still, you can still tell, I feel like this used to be a patio.
Yeah. Is the plan to, as cash flow increases and as things pick up and as money comes in, are you just going to keep on blowing out walls?
No, because we don't have more walls to blow out.
Okay.
But the plan is to redevelop the property as time goes on and cash flow goes on. I would like to put another concept, maybe 2 concepts.
That's cool.
On that property.
Nice.
And so then we have our nice little compound kind of right there.
I love that.
But as far as Sedalia's footprint, I think Sedalia's footprint, unless we were to tear the whole thing down and rebuild it, I think Sedalia's footprint's pretty much where it's at.
What were your biggest challenges in the first year of getting open?
I think, honestly, probably getting people to know that we were open, that we were a thing. That
How far are you from outside of downtown?
We're not that, like 10 minutes, 9 minutes.
Not even that.
Yeah, we are still in like somewhat of a downtown
So
area.
was that the challenge of like letting people know you're there, or like you said, getting people to know you're open?
Yeah, people to know that we're open. Just making we opened in 2022, so everybody was figuring out that we had pop-ups, and people would ask, "When is your opening date? When is your opening date?" So we started, coming up with business cards, letting them know grand opening this date. But I think even after we got the few people that had already come to our pop-ups through the doors, there was a big like, how do we get more people to come in and to try out the concept and to come back, to return? And I think that was the first, is like, how do we let people know that we're here? The second one was probably dealing with the element of just being so small, and people here, our community, being so used to having air conditioning, and we didn't have a lot of air conditioning. We were outside most of the time. The element of flies, just every little, it just felt like, I always joked and said it felt like dealing with the plagues of Egypt, like, the wind, the flies, the locusts. Every day there was like, at least there's no rain today. There'll be like a giant tornado, like a tornado watch, something. And I just felt like, of course.
Wind
and
on wind.
And so reservations, and people will call and ask, well, is it insulated? Are we going to be rained on? Are we going to fly away? Like, and I'll be like, I would say things like, I think we'll hope for the best.
They're like, that's really
give us a try, and just come and see what happens. So the first year that we didn't have a dining room, it was rough.
Yeah.
We were at the mercy of the cold winter, which I didn't think Oklahoma would get so cold, but it does.
Yeah.
Not having walls, people could hear the music from the other nearby food trucks being played loud, and then like our music will get drowned out between the other music. It felt like a little Frankenstein of a space.
I can't wait to see it. I'm gonna hope to swing by and grab some B-roll of the space while we're there.
Please do.
Oh,
Yeah.
you have to.
So a year in, just getting people to create awareness. What did work for you? Eventually, people found out. Was it getting walls? Was that the thing that did it for you?
No, I think honestly it was word of mouth. People started finding us, and people would say things. My neighbor told me, or people have been telling me. You've been telling. The support from the community, people that actually had other restaurants come and eating at the restaurant and reposting on their personal pages. Word of mouth is really how we build our clientele. I think the dining scene and the demographics that were coming to the restaurant and at Sedalia's are very niche, and just as long as that they're gonna tell their friends, we were growing our fan base, if you will. And I think that really did it for us. I think what helped us the most, though, I will say, is probably getting the Bon Appetit Best New Restaurant in 2023, because then that got publicized. That was on the Oklahoman, that was on the news, that was on the Bon Appetit magazine, and people had this sense of pride and just happiness to see Oklahoma represented.
That's awesome.
In a national level.
Yeah.
So we got different types of people that would never come in. People that only eat certain types of food were coming to the restaurant to look at our menu and get down and get some oysters or some of the other offerings that we had. So it's been very slow moving, building that kind of clientele in the community, getting people in through the doors. And then we've been open for 3 years now, and it's gone up, but it's definitely still a work in progress.
Yeah. And I mean, I try and make it a point not to talk about the food on this podcast because it's so much. I like to say you're opening a restaurant.
Sure. Yeah.
I hope you can cook, or you know somebody that can, right? But can you do everything else right? You know, because it's the everything else that will kill you. You could be the best chef, most talented person, but if you don't know how to run a business, it won't be enough. If you don't know how to treat people, if you don't know how to lead, you need all those things, right? But I mean, in terms of the food, I think in this case, you're doing seafood in Oklahoma, landlocked, so you still have like this I guess desire to like take things from other places and like bring them to where you are, right? Like,
well, we didn't want
you do it through your truck.
Well, but that and we
for
don't
quality's sake.
Yeah, we don't really have to, because even when we're talking about the food, especially for what we did, it actually feeds into what the restaurant is. So it's part of the business idea. Is we wanted to be competitive, and we wanted to do a concept that doesn't exist here.
Blue water.
And so by doing that and doing it in the style that we do it, we're not a New Orleans style seafood restaurant. We're not a New England style seafood restaurant. We're not a California seafood restaurant. We are maybe a mixture, a little bit of all of them. But a lot of our influences kind of come from more Mediterranean and Spanish, and then also South American and things like that. So those ideas and our inspirations come more Spain, South America, if you will.
What is the challenge for you, if any, with sourcing? Are you like, because you never? I mean, were you serving seafood at Salt and Cure? I mean,
we had, but I had a lot of fishermen that I was going direct to.
So what has it been like in terms of the sourcing and developing the relationships?
I still have the relationships from my past life,
and
I just carried those relationships over.
Got it.
And then I found new relationships.
Got it.
And people have found us too, and they want to be a part of what we're doing here as well. There's a lot of people in the seafood game that are looking to expand their businesses in smaller markets and landlocked markets because shipping is so accessible now. So yeah, it's a little expensive, but it's not as crazy as it used to be, and it's an untapped market, and a lot of people just are unwilling to venture into it.
Do you know Nick Sakagami by any chance?
No, that doesn't sound familiar.
I had him on the show. He's like a sushi, like, I don't know, like, I guess he specializes in sourcing like sustainable fish from sustainable farms from all over the world that are like have like a higher standard of how they're doing things. It was a really interesting conversation. I thought maybe you might be interested in that.
Yeah, that could be. It was
1109.
1109.
So
and I think that is, again, I mean, that is part of it. But the inside of the way that the business is designed is so that, again, we have a very low overhead. It's very bare, so that we can put most of the emphasis on not only the food but also the beverages that you're drinking, and then the service that you're going to get. Like, we're one of the very few restaurants in Oklahoma City that does not have televisions inside the restaurant.
Yeah.
And that is very important to both Silvana and I. And I think that as far as making business decisions, when you're designing restaurants, when you purposefully design them without televisions, I think that you are making the intention to focus on what's actually going on in front of you. So you can say whether it's about the food, or you can say whether it's about the food and drink, or you can just say it's more about the conversation.
Yeah.
So, like, we joked before we started the podcast that, we're not fine dining, we're more anti-fine dining in a way. So as the way of, like, how Deadpool would be an anti-hero, so to speak, but still a hero.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to be fine dining, but at the same time, the service that you're going to get, the type of meal, the food, the quality of the food that you're going to eat, and the quality of the wine that's being, given, that we've chosen to put in front of you, those are also the same things that you're going to find at a fine dining restaurant.
Yeah, hospitality isn't necessarily synonymous with fine dining.
Yeah.
Hospitality is warmth, generosity, caring. Like caring about your people. You don't have to be pretentious to do that.
No, and I think that, unfortunately, American fine dining has found itself to be less empathetic, and I find it to be more about transactional,
Yeah.
and what can you do for me, and I'm only again. It seems to be very geared towards just the idea of kind of the same way that social media only portrays life as everybody's having fun and everybody's having a good time. And I find fine dining to be that. I don't look at fine dining as the pinnacle of where food is.
Honestly, yeah, and I think the award. I mean, I've been kind of outspoken about how I feel about James Beard winners and Michelin star winners, and not necessarily the winners, but the entities, the James Beard Foundation and the Michelin Guide, and not just those two, but when you think of like awards, those are the two big ones that come to mind, right? And any kind of like, I hate what media does and marketing does to the restaurant industry, because it takes what doesn't matter and it puts it front and center, and it shows it. Like, in terms of what doesn't matter, I'm talking about like, food is important, but restaurants aren't necessarily centered around food as much as they're centered around relationships.
Well, and in that, like, I like to always talk, like, restaurants to me are what creates, it's kind of the tip of the spear of what creates the culture inside of the city that you're in.
Right.
Because culture is grown outside of a restaurant, inside and outside. People write stories in restaurants or cafes or bars. People create art in the same spaces. People come up with relative new friends and old friends and have, like, create conversation and create life and create ideas inside of these spaces. So the idea of the food, in only focusing on the food, and the fact that our award systems are there to only look at the food, I can only agree with it to the point of they are trying to tip their hat towards the artistic side of what all those speak to. But I think that it misses the mark of what the restaurant actually should be in essence to its representation of that city.
Absolutely. 100%.
And it's nice that I have a platform, or at least not really even, I mean, I have an outlet to be expressive artistically with my food, and the way in which I flavor my food, the way in which I plate it, the way in which I cook it even can be an extension of that artistic idea. However, most restaurants fail because that's where it stops.
Right.
And most chefs can't see
beyond it.
And therefore they're not realizing that the fact that you've got bad service or very pretentious people around you is going to drive a lot of people away.
Right.
And most average, ordinary, quote unquote, normal people aren't attracted to that shit.
Right. 100%. And I think you said something before, like when you came to your end in Los Angeles, where you kind of just had this point where you just had to like kind of unplug from it all and like reset. When you reset, and what was the new objective for you? Like, what were you trying to create? What mattered the most? And then whatever you did next.
It was more a matter of building more of something that felt more communal than building something that was only about myself.
Right. And what happened when you started to do that?
I mean, I feel better. I think that, and also, Silvana, again, we are nominated for James Beard this year. So
sorry, I didn't think I might just blew up your shot for that one.
Whether or not we make it to the finals or not, who knows? It's not why we started the restaurant. It's nice to be recognized, but it is hard to only be recognized as a chef award when restaurants are so much, so much more than just the chef. But like, my point being though is that when I've made this less about the food and myself, and I've made it more about the community that Silvana and I wanted to create, and allow a lot of her expertise and a lot of her qualities and her goodness come in and be this, like, I don't know, it's almost like this like layer, it's almost like a blanket that is able to sit on top of everything else. it has allowed people to kind of see more. I feel like that idea that I just talked about is that this isn't a place for us to just be, measuring our egos. This is a place for us to make community, to make friends, to, inspire other people to do similar things. I would love for Sedalia's to be an inspiration for other people to say, what do I need that big investor for so that why do I need to spend $1 million when all I really need to spend is the bare minimum?
Well, I mean, a couple things. That 100%, like putting the things that matter at the forefront, relationships and the quality of the food, and I mean all that stuff over the the glitz and the glamour. Also, when you stop focusing on the ego and the chasing the awards, all of a sudden they started to appear, right? And it's kind of funny how that happens.
It is,
and I do want to say that, like I point out and I beat up on. I do think that the James Beard Foundation kind of has been receptive to their optic.
Sure.
I think that they got in trouble, what was it, right around 2020 with the hashtag Me Too, and only giving too many old white dudes awards, and they started to say, well, we need to change this. And then they went way overcorrection to the point where, was it about who's doing the best, or is it about rounding off your awards to be equitable?
Yeah.
And like, not to say that doesn't matter, but when you're overcorrect so far that it's just like, what really are you trying to do here? Like, is this all about optics, or do you actually, what is like going on? And I think they've actually now started to find a point of equilibrium where there's. It seems like they're almost doing more honest work.
I would like to hope so, and I think that from our perspective, I think that that's probably the case. I think we take anything to take an idea from Bill Maher where he says the only reaction Americans know how to do is overreact.
Right.
I do think that it would be nice to think that we took what needed to be done in 2020 to get a lot of bad players off the court, so to speak. We may have pushed the pendulum a little too far one way, but it's still, humbly, it still hasn't completely corrected the decades and decades and decades that certain people were never recognized.
Right.
So, but I do definitely understand. I definitely agree that it does kind of play in that idea. Are we recognizing merit at this point, or are we just recognizing optics?
Right.
And I don't.
Plays well on social media, though.
I tell you, it's not because of. I mean, in my
what matters?
In my opinion, because of social media, it's not fun to be in any type of media now.
I can tell you guys want to get there, and I do too. But I really try. I want to like wrap up on that sentiment of like, because I feel similar sentiments. One thing has not come out yet, and you guys started doing pop-ups to get your brand out there. And if I'm opening a restaurant tomorrow, I'm popping up like flowers in spring, man. Like I am networking. I am trying to find out who I can collaborate. I think that is such a smart way to get your brand out there, and to not just get your brand in front of your consumer, but to grow relationships with other restaurants in your community. So can you guys talk to that real quick about your strategy in networking and finding people and popping up?
I think the strategy was I don't know how I think maybe we thought about the pop-up together. We are really good friends. We're a couple that are from California also. Bailey Butler and Brian Butler, the Butlers. They own a bar called Palo Santo.
Yeah, that was Rachel Cope's other recommendation. I reached out to them. I'd love to make that happen.
They are fantastic. Brian and Bailey are very similar to Zack and I, husband-wife partners. They moved here from the west side of Los Angeles, Venice. Her parents are from here. I think she might be from here. I think not somewhere else, but Brian's from Arizona. But long story short, we love their bar. We started going to it when we moved back to Oklahoma, and I think in conversation, or I know that when they opened up their bar, they were doing some pop-ups as well at some other friends' bars. I think maybe Barkeep let them do a couple pop-ups, maybe one or two. and they exactly what you talked about. It was a great way of showing the product, the concept, but also growing friends in the industry as well. Getting to know the who is who.
You can't do it alone.
Can't do it alone. You definitely cannot do it alone. And this wouldn't have been done without their help.
For $200, you can start a brand,
Yes.
right? You can get a domain. You can get your, email at whatever your restaurant name is .com. You can go to a 99 Designs and get a logo, and you can start cooking and collecting emails and building a list and building a social media. I know I said the word following, right? Getting your brand out there.
Got to do it.
And for next to nothing. And you can leverage the assets of other people in relationships, i.e. they're other people's kitchens, to grow your brand. So when you are ready, you have a list of 10,000 ready to go that you can promote your business to. Did you guys do stuff like that?
We definitely did the pop-up game, and they were very instrumental in also helping us draw a crowd and bring it in. They kind of give us a stamp of approval and let us do
That's
our
the other
thing.
thing. You're associating your brand with other successful brands.
That's where I
Yes.
think the pop-up is the strongest.
Right.
Is that stamp of approval.
Well, that's how social media works. It's about finding other influencers and collaborating and drawing on each other's audiences.
And we did a few with them, a few with another bar just down the road from them called the Powerhouse, and their clientele is different. It's not like Palo Santo is definitely a little bit more
On trend.
on trend, trendier. Whereas the Powerhouse is more of like,
it's got Riz.
it's got Riz, it's got the charismatic. The Powerhouse is a little bit more of, I think the clientele is a little bit more older people, also a little more Western, a little bit more like a Roadhouse, if you will. And it was fun to associate ourselves because then we were introducing our brand in different settings.
Right.
Where we could fit there, we could fit at Palo, we could fit at a Fairweather Friend. We did a pop-up at a pizza, a beer restaurant, and honestly, it was great because then they have their built-in clientele. So by then we're having an oyster night in a few weeks. People will come
There's
in.
no
and
overlap. There's no competition.
There is no
and then
competition.
we also took it up to Tulsa also, which we weren't
So we
planning on
traveled,
opening in Tulsa, but we wanted to align ourselves with some of the breweries that are up there. And just because they have we wanted to create relationships, and B, we wanted to just it's that strategy for us was like, because people, are you guys opening up here in Tulsa? No, we're going to be in Oklahoma City. Oh, that's that seems kind of interesting, but at the end of the day, it's still we're a small state, so if you associate with these brands, then people will drive the hour from Tulsa to come and see you as well.
Yeah.
And,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where I was at.
I think the other thing that is worth mentioning is that you weren't just some schmuck, right? Like you both came from pedigree success, and I think when you are doing pop-ups, you got to take that into account too. Like, is it going to benefit? Is it a win-win, right? Like, so your talent is also adding value to these brands that you're popping up with. And I think that you have to take that. You can't just be like somebody who's like, hey, I want to test a recipe and I have no restaurant experience and I want to pop up in your restaurant. Unless you have a really good relationship with that person, don't expect them to meet you halfway.
That definitely has helped us. Like what you're saying, the idea that people know this wasn't our first pop-up. Like we've been welcoming people, saying hi to people. He's been cooking for people, and and the fact that some of them knew who we were also, and they knew the places that we worked at, gave us a leverage also to understand they mean serious like business when they're serious.
I don't want that to discourage people from reaching out to people to get started, but just know that like clout helps.
Well, and I think that, but that's also, again, you want to be as encouraging as possible. But again, if you're going to be a true mentor and try to mentor people that want to get into this business and they want to start, it's very important that people spend their time, cutting their teeth and earning their stripes, 100%. So to speak. If you have a great idea, but you've still never worked in a restaurant, go and spend time working in restaurants.
Unless you're Mr. Beast, and then just use your brand to have somebody else work your...
and we're all...
What is this, Mr. Beast?
And there's so many Mr. Beasts around us. But there's a lot of people that, again, I'm sure you meet a lot of people. We meet a lot of people. They want to open up a restaurant, or they want to start doing, a food truck or this and that. And it's like... But they don't know what hospitality really is or what working in hospitality really means.
Yeah.
Because you could be the nicest person in the world. You could be a great host. You could be a great dinner. You could throw great dinner parties at your house. It doesn't mean it's going to translate into being a good restaurateur or anything of that nature.
Yeah. It's 3:10 right now, guys. I want to make sure you know the time. You said you hard stop 3:30, right?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
I do like to talk about tech stack, like how you're building your systems, and then I want to wrap up talking about how you feel, why you got off social media. But real quick, what is your tech stack today?
She's gonna answer that.
What is the question?
Tech stack. Are you leveraging systems and technology to be more efficient and profitable?
What are we? Let's see. I would probably say like we're using like Toast. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Like Toast is our point of sale system. We just jumped on OpenTable. We left Talk Her.
Well, yeah, Talk is now owned by Resi. I don't know if you knew
They
that.
are.
Why
Yeah.
didn't you like Talk?
Talk.
I don't think they liked us.
Why?
That's not necessarily true. I felt very lonely on our island. So I also handle all the reservations. I do all of our social media. I do all the emailing, all that stuff. So as someone who is learning the how-to guide and to start a booking platform, we got the help initially, but we never got this like really nice check-in. How is that working out for you all? Every time I had a question about how to build a new floor plan, how to sell this event on Talk, how do I link this event to this particular floor plan? They were very prompt to reply via email. And they would show me how-to videos that I could watch on my phone so then I could do it on the actual app on the computer.
Yep.
But it felt like it was missing that human connection, like the connectivity of, oh, okay, great. That answers a lot of my questions. And, they follow up with like, did that answer your question? Or something? And I'm like, yeah, it does. And but I just missed the idea of someone being like, how is that working out for you? Did you like
Checking
it?
in.
Yeah, and they do ask follow-up emails of like, check in, give us your feedback. How was that experience for you? What can we do better? All that stuff. But then it also didn't help that we had their OpenTable rep came into Oklahoma City and kind of had asked to talk to us and then talk to us a little bit more about how they have revamped their platform because
They got some heat for some time. Their OpenTable was getting some not a lot of love.
No, but they're coming back.
Yeah.
Well, and that was
they revamped. They got rid of all, as they said, they got rid of all the old people in the boardroom, and they reshaped it.
Yeah.
My experience with OpenTable was from back in the hostess days in New York City, where everybody had OpenTable before Resi, before Reserve, before Talk, before any of them. And then the fact that they hadn't changed any of their internal systems, and it was very antiquated, and they weren't doing anything that was selling events or experiences, or being just more engaging about questions that I would have about changing floor plans and.
So the customer support's there.
Customer support is there.
And
they came in and they show that they are not just there to push their brand. They're there to help you elevate and then really just refine your connection to your guest by almost partnering up and saying you're not just part of like the OpenTable family. We want to be a part of your family. So it kind of the way I look at it now is more as having an extra person in the restaurant with us, helping us navigate all the ideas that we have for possibly getting in more reservations and booking and throwing events.
And does OpenTable sync with Toast?
It does.
So the data is moving?
So you can pay for I think it's like a little extra you pay in and you can actually sync in your data so they can talk to each other. And it helps because it's kind of getting rid of like the one host that will go around checking in and marking people on appetizer, dessert, entree to know how soon you'll be getting tables back. As far as turning tables, it works. You just got to make sure that you let your servers update. Or I think even like you can just put in dessert and it'll update the table to a dessert bubble.
Got it.
So that people know that that table will be coming available probably in the next 20 minutes.
Got it. It's interesting to see. I've been doing this for 12 years now. How the landscape like sways from oh, look at this new technology, OpenTable, to we don't like OpenTable, to they figured out the people don't like them and they're making changes. But you got to respect when people choose to
they're receptive
to evolve.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard to do for especially companies who are maybe run or led by people who are just not willing to accept that maybe my job and my purpose here is no longer serving the company.
Right.
Maybe I let someone younger or a different person, not even younger, maybe older, with just somebody
New
more with a vision and a little bit more of a different perspective.
And again, all the technologies in the palm of our hand have evolved also.
Right.
Like it's not as novel anymore. like we're still using them, right? But when Resi first came out, that was novel. Like I could make a reservation in the palm of my hand. They had that app before OpenTable had their app. I didn't have to sit down at a computer. I could do it right here. And everybody wanted to do that. You know what I mean? Like everybody wanted to say, I'm using this new technology. And I think that kind of was where that was really powerful for Resi, in the same way that it was for things like Uber and Lyft as well too. And I think that now though, people are like that just can't be the new. Oh, I just have an app, so you can do it on that. That's everybody.
Like
exactly. Now it's standard. So I think more your platforms, how you're able to promote things and things like that have become more important again.
It does scare me that there's two companies that represent all restaurants in the country, basically. Not all, but 90% of all restaurants are on one of two platforms, OpenTable or Resi. And it seems pretty neck and neck right now, which is kind of interesting.
And they're also owned by credit card companies. There's American Express that owns Resi, and then there is Visa that owns
OpenTable.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's that just classic non-monopoly American spirit that we have here. You know?
Well, I mean,
we're just really into that whole thing.
Well, I think in capitalism, it's about whoever can pay more, whoever can spend the most money wins. And when that money goes towards marketing and buying influencers, and
there's supposed to be a thing that helps bust that up, though.
What's that called? The government?
I don't know. I've never heard of it.
But at the same time, I think it's a yes and situation, but I do think that there's a level of civil duty to let you devote with your dollars.
Yeah.
And like.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We are very guilty of going for whatever the most convenient, cheapest option is, and we're very bottom line driven, and we're what's in it for me. But we have to ask, what's in it for like everyone where I put my dollars? Like, what is the bigger picture?
Yeah.
And I think that these big corporations are good at not letting you understand what the bigger picture is. They don't want you to know the bigger.
Of course not.
But there's information flowing today, and we can educate ourselves, and we can talk to people, and we can share information. I do think that we could be more educated on our purchasing decisions.
Yeah. Well, I know that, Yelp tried really hard to get in the reservation game, and I don't know, that didn't work out overly well for them. But I know that pre-COVID, they were creating waiting lists. You can go on a Yelp waiting list.
Yeah.
And that was for a lot of people that didn't believe in taking reservations at all, but I could create a waiting list.
Yeah, they purchased a waitlist me.
Was that what it was?
Something like that, or there was one of those like very early on wait list apps they purchased. I want to say they acquired.
Yeah,
and they were doing some stuff with that. We have covered a lot today. I want to make sure you guys get out of here when you said you had to be out.
Sure.
Why did you choose to get off social media?
A distraction, noise, and just diverting my. Just you all of a sudden just get lost. All you're doing is flipping through picture after picture after picture after picture. And second, just overall, I was tired of FOMO in a way, of looking at stuff,
comparing yourself.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the comparing, but it's more a matter. The FOMO for me is more like God, being angry that somebody else is either getting some sort of publicity or that another place has something that I want to have here. You know what I mean? So to a lot of it was just to try to disengage and just be present with what we what we have. I just kind of want to be present with myself at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that has been, it's been one I don't miss. I don't. There's nothing that I miss about not having this thing that just kind of.
Yeah, I wish I could have somebody do my social media.
Yeah,
I know it's been hard.
My only social media. I have an Eric Cacciatore, and it's so people can send me dirty or inappropriate things that I don't want other people seeing that might get into my business account.
Yeah,
it's for friends.
Sure.
The things, the private conversations.
Yeah.
The things that I have that, and it's basically just for me. Don't send anything that might get me in trouble to this account, please.
All right.
Send it to this private one. But the day I can outsource social media, and I'm kind of weird. I'm torn because I agree that it's almost necessary. You still have your business account. Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's one of these things where it's a necessary evil. right? Well, what are your thoughts before I share my thought, Silvana?
Well, I think, I agree with what you were about to say. It's a necessary evil because it has worked for the business in getting our product out there, in letting ourselves be known out there. So we don't have a public relations person. We do all the public relations before I do it all.
Right.
So I've been able to use that and see what other businesses and how they are advertising dinners, how they're advertising new seating hours, happy hours, and how fun and creative, their social media people get with it, and just kind of get some cues and ideas from that. So it's helped me in that sense. But
what is working for you in terms of let's give some positive feedback on social media. And if you got any social media advice, what's working for you?
I would say for me is don't be afraid of you have to have a clear vision of what your brand is. And when I say take cues and tips from people, in the element of that's a great idea to get this idea that I have already a different platform, or to be viewed and received with a different light. So it's not just about selling, which is one thing that I really tried not to focus on, the expense, how big it is, more on the idea of how is this going to make you feel.
Yeah.
Bring friends. So I always, whenever we have an event coming up on Friday where we're doing a bottle release, a new vintage for a bottle of wine called Shucks. And I've been trying to find fun ways to engage the public and make it look not very stuffy. It's a wine tasting, the way you would with old men going around and old ladies being I taste this, but just kind of more of a picnic. Just show up, bring a friend or somebody you don't know very well, but that you will maybe get to know better, and bring them to something like this bottle release party. Because then we'll be doing the tastings, we'll be having some snacks. I like using the words snacks, things that are a little more playful than serious. There'll be oysters and there'll be some other little bites going around, but this idea that it doesn't have to be stuffy, it doesn't have to be that serious, and you can still manage to have a very good time, and you still feel like this was probably the highlight of my day.
And that's your brand. So communicating your brand and letting people know this is what we're after, and does this sound like you? Yeah,
but in the element of having social media around, I can see how other people use their flyers. This year, I told Zack I'm really focusing making all of our wine dinners or collaborations or anything look like concert music posters. Which I think that how cool, how fun it is to present a collaboration with a winemaker or another chef as it's like a show. You're going to a show, and you have a pre-sold, before at the door, tickets are $65, $75 at the door. If you forget in your last minute, you book a reservation. Have this idea of it's an event, and you're coming to see a band. You're coming to see two people perform in a way,
focus on the experience.
Focus on the experience, have a good time, gather some friends, but at the same time, it has that very underlying element of, but it's not stuffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's she's done the social media page, she's done the Instagram page since we've opened, and it's a clear, conscious, it reads correctly. You know what I mean? Like it reads as if a story's been, you can tell it's the same writer, I guess. It doesn't go up and down. The pictures are consistent. The tone is consistent.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really, really important. She sometimes writes a lot, on the post. And a lot of times, she gets told all the time, oh, don't write that much. People don't read anymore. They're just 3 or 4 words. But people wait for our posts to come out so they can read what she's going to say, and you can tell that because people talk about it, and I think that's pretty strong.
Now, what's the dark side? Before I cut you off,
the dark side is, of course, what Zack already described. You're up late night, trying to catch up on what haven't I seen today? What's happened with my friends? Because all my friends now and I communicate through, I guess, social media.
Yeah.
Rather than texting or calling and saying, how's it going? I'll just send someone a meme on their social media invoice or inbox to see if they'll think it's funny, or to describe how tired I am, or to describe something that looks really good. Or it feels like for a while there I was having conversations with friends and family that weren't even having conversations. They were just a tennis match of pictures. So
yeah, it's weird. I think I've said before, and I'll say it again, I think marketing is the bane of human existence. And I think that there needs to be some social responsibility on people who make careers out of marketing, and they're just so consumed with data and paying attention to what works but you have to ask yourself, at what expense? There isn't a person on this planet that would tell you to spend more time on social media unless they had something to gain from it.
Oh, yeah.
And anybody who ever has told you spend more time on social media has something to gain from it. Just think about that. So, we really have to be conscious of okay, who's controlling the narrative here? So how, what should matter? What should determine your success? Your ability to promote yourself or your ability to do a good job? And when the ability to promote yourself outweighs your ability to actually be talented and to care for your people, when that starts to have more weight than the thing itself, I think there's an imbalance. That's just how I feel. And I think that we don't talk enough about we're so very short-sighted in the restaurant industry. We're so busy in our four walls. And we see outside, as far as we can see, is people are telling us to spend more time on social media. But what's beyond that is who owns these companies? 2, 3 companies own all of the world's influence.
All social media.
All social media.
The world's influence. It's not, you know what I'm saying? That's literally how we get our news. It's how we communicate.
Sure.
If you're talking about Google, it's where you do your communication with email. It's how you find out where you're going tonight. It's how you do your search. This is a level of influence that is unprecedented and fucking scary. And when it's tied to that level of, it's not just, I'm using this to communicate and to promote myself.
Yes.
No, they know every tap of your phone. They're listening to you. And when you take,
I always tell Zack, I said, turn off your
it's
phone.
crazy. We don't. How does that not make it into the conversation? We're just no, I need it for my business. But how are we being influenced? We've figured out in the past 2 elections that social media swayed.
Oh yeah, big time.
But people just forget. Nobody cares. And TikTok is the 3rd or 2nd largest platform now, and that's owned by China.
Yeah, well,
I'm not saying I
never got into the TikTok.
Screens are wild, man.
They are.
Screens are.
As a matter of fact, I think
wild.
I always tell Zack I want to go back to just having a flip phone, nothing, just conversations. But turning it off for me has also, I think, in the same way. It was getting too out of control, and the fact that we're raising a little human. We have a 3-year-old, and I wanted to spend more time just being present, being a better mom, working out, actually reading a book that isn't just a piece, or looking at the news, reading a newspaper that isn't a piece of information that I'm just reading off a caption of another Instagram. So we got off at the beginning of the year, and we haven't turned it back on. I don't know that we ever will, to be honest, for our personal.
I promise I'll get you guys out of here by 3:30. We got to wrap it up. I have 3 more questions for you. If we can answer them quickly, we can be wrapped up on time. And it's been a lot of fun, but here they come. You ready?
Okay.
What's one thing about your business, a value, a process, a system that's been truly uncommon and makes you unstoppable?
I'm going to go ahead and say trust.
That's huge. The mission statement is to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry. How have you personally transformed? How are you better people today than the people you were when you got started?
Oh, we've allowed humbleness to really take hold of, I think, our weekly business models. I mean, we deal with elements on the outside just from how our business is set up, just from how the restaurant's set up. We have dealt with, lack of seatings and things like that. I mean, it just we've really allowed ourselves to stay humble through the whole process.
But to also stay, I think, a sponge. We're never not learning again. It feels like even though it feels like we've gotten to here, there are some experiences that always bring me that to the bottom and being like, I did not know that. That's cool. I'm just learning. And not just from learning from mentors, but learning from our staff too, and perception. Always just eyes wide open and learning.
Yeah. The last question. If you got the news you'd be leaving this world tomorrow, all the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom you could leave behind with the good of humanity and your legacy. What would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
As a mentor, don't forget to learn from the mentee.
1.
Trust yourself.
2.
Take risks.
3. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for making time for me. I've truly enjoyed learning your story and sharing it, and I think it's truly inspiring to what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Who do you respect and admire? Call somebody out. This is how I found my future guests. Who should I get on the show?
Ooh, okay. It has to be a restaurant.
Well, you already mentioned Brian and Bailey.
Brian and Bailey Butler.
They'd be good for here in the city. They'd be really great.
Who else you got?
Well, I think. I mean, also
Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel and Jeff
Chanteloon.
Yeah.
Rachel
They-
Cope or
No, Rachel and Jeff Chanteloon. They own
Madère
Madère.
and Barsen that just
Yeah.
opened up. It's a restaurant in the Plaza District, Laotian. Awesome.
Look
Very
out.
similar.
coming
but
after you.
different.
Coming after you. I'd love to get you on the show. And how can we connect with you?
You can email us at info@sedaliasokc.com. You can follow us on Instagram at sedaliasokc. We have a website, www.sedaliasokc.com. And yeah, that's how you get to connect with us.
I was taking a selfie of the three of us while she was sharing that contact information to post on social media. Yes,
Nice.
I'm a hypocrite. I said it's a necessary evil. I don't like it, but I'm a digital product. Guys, this has been so much fun.
Hey, it's been a
thank you so
blast.
much.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to walk you out now. We'll hopefully see you in a few years when you're scaling
Cool.
like crazy. Cheers.
Thank you.